For many years, the wider galaxy treated Earth's navy as a minor curiosity rather than a real threat. Alien commanders openly laughed whenever human fleets were discussed. In their view, Earth was inexperienced, poorly equipped, and far too small to matter. Its warships seemed undersized, its technology appeared outdated, and its numbers were limited. In council chambers across distant systems, the mention of humanity brought smirks instead of concern. On the outskirts of a cold and distant star system, a powerful alien armada drifted in tight formation. The hulls of their ships shone under starlight, marked by scars from wars fought across 100 worlds. These vessels belonged to the Drevi Dominion, a ruthless and confident power that had destroyed entire civilizations. To the Dravari, humans were prey waiting to be claimed. Aboard the Flagship, Admiral Thrax reclined in his command chair, reviewing incoming reports with visible amusement. A lieutenant announced that Earth ships were assembling near the boundary of their system and described them as pathetic frigates and corvettes attempting to mount a defense. Thrax laughed deeply and told his officers to let the humans gather and cling to hope, because soon their worlds would burn and their people would kneel. The bridge filled with harsh laughter. The crew recalled their previous clash with humanity, when a small group of agging cruisers had barely held the line before being overwhelmed by the Dominion arsenal. Earth had been left damaged, but not destroyed simply because it was not considered worth the effort at that time. Now Thrax intended to finish what had been started, yet beyond the mocking voices and confident gestures, something shifted in the darkness of space. A strange presence pressed against sensors and unsettled the crew. A young operator noticed it first, his claws tapping nervously across his console as he studied long-range scans. He reported a massive shadow moving across their readings. Thrax immediately demanded the display. At first, the image looked like interference, a distortion against the star field. Gradually, however, the outline expanded, stretching wider until it covered entire clusters of stars. Silence overtook the bridge. One officer whispered that it could not possibly be a ship because it was far too large. Another suggested it might be a station or even a moon. The scanners began to fail under the strain, flooding with distorted data. Size calculations exceeded system limits, and energy readings surged so high that instruments shut down entirely. The operator confirmed that the object was moving. Slowly it advanced, deliberate and steady. Then its engines ignited with controlled power, revealing a vast hull of black metal kilometers long. Towers rose from its surface like rigid structures of steel. Its armor plating appeared thick enough to resemble entire continents. Etched along its side, glowing faintly, was the insignia of Earth's Navy and the designation Titan-class warship. For years, this vessel had been dismissed as rumor, a tale whispered among human crews and ridiculed by outsiders. Some had called it the Phantom Ship, a myth meant to boost morale. No one believed Earth possessed the resources to construct such a machine, yet it now stood before them, blocking out the stars. Admiral Thrax slowly rose from his chair, unease tightening his posture for the first time in decades. He muttered that it was impossible and insisted humans could not have built it. His crew stared in stunned silence. The Titan's engines glowed with power beyond anything the Dominion had recorded. Along its sides, enormous weapon ports opened, large enough to engulf destroyers. Its shadow fell across the fleet, and even the most seasoned Dravari captains felt their confidence weaken. Inside the Titan, human officers worked with steady discipline. The bridge was immense, structured like a vast chamber of steel and light filled with tactical displays. Commander Ellis stood at the center, composed and focused. He showed no sign of excitement. He ordered the ship to hold position and allow the enemy to observe. The Titan remained still, looming with quiet authority. On the Dominion flagship, tension replaced mockery. One officer argued that it was only a single ship and could not defeat a fleet. Few believed him. The Titan did not fire or advance aggressively. It simply remained present, and that presence alone unsettled the Dominion. The operator reported that the Titan was scanning every vessel and every system in their formation. Thrax tightened his grip on his chair, aware that he lacked a clear strategy. Fear began to spread across the bridge. The appearance of the Titan-class warship changed the balance of the battlefield, and every Dravari officer understood that nothing would remain the same. The Titan continued forward at an unhurried pace, growing larger on Dominion screens until its surface seemed endless. Thrax had faced many enemies and watched worlds fall, but he had never confronted a single ship so vast and assured. He reminded his officers that they were the Dominion and that their numbers would prevail, yet his voice betrayed strain. On the Titan, Ellis calmly reviewed system reports. Shields were stable and main batteries were charging. He instructed his crew not to fire without direct order and to let the enemy feel uncertainty. The hull reflected distant starlight, layered in metals forged in secret Earth foundries. Faint blue energy lines shimmered beneath the surface. The Dravari fleet shifted uneasily. Reports came in that the Titan's weapons were activating. Massive turrets rotated into alignment, cannons larger than any Dominion gun locked into place, missile silos opened beneath the hull, and energy arrays brightened along its towers. Despite this, the Titan held its fire. Thrax accused the humans of attempting intimidation and ordered his fleet to prepare for attack. On the Titan, Ellis commanded the projection of presence. A low-frequency pulse radiated outward. It was not an offensive strike, yet alien ships felt the vibration through hull and body. Consoles flickered, and tension deepened. Across the Dominion formation, uncertainty spread. Some captains edged their ships backward without direct command. Ellis and his officers remained composed, aware this was only the opening move of a long conflict. The operator then reported that the Titan had locked weapons onto the flagship. Silence fell once more. Thrax faced a difficult decision, knowing that either action or retreat carried consequences. He ordered the fleet to prepare to strike, determined to defend Dominion pride. On the Titan, Ellis directed all weapons to target the flagship without firing. Dominion sensors confirmed it immediately. Every cannon and missile bay aligned toward Thrax. The Admiral felt genuine fear as his vast fleet suddenly seemed insignificant. The Titan stood silent, yet its intent was unmistakable. For several minutes, neither side moved. Then Thrax commanded the attack. Dominion warships surged forward, engines blazing. Energy cannons discharged, missiles streaked through space, and plasma beams illuminated the void. The entire fleet focused its strength on a single objective, the Titan, and from a distance it appeared as though the sky itself had become a storm of relentless fire. Fire engulfed the Titan as the Dominion assault reached its peak. Explosions flared across the immense hull, casting red and gold light over its dark armor. The barrage continued for long moments without sound in the vacuum, and several Dominion captains began to believe their combined strength might be enough. Gradually, the storm of weapons fire subsided. When the glare faded, the Titan remained exactly where it had been. Its shields shimmered faintly, steady and intact. Not a single Dominion strike had penetrated. Missiles, beams, and cannon blasts had all been absorbed or deflected without effect. On the human bridge, Commander Ellis stood composed. He requested a status update. A technician confirmed that all shields were green and no damage had been detected. Ellis acknowledged the report and issued a simple order to return fire. The response was immediate. The Titan's broadside cannons discharged, releasing bolts of energy brighter than a sun. The first volley crossed the distance and upon impact did more than damage enemy vessels. It eliminated them. Entire cruisers disappeared in bursts of light, their structures torn apart instantly. With one volley, dozens of ships were gone. Panic spread through the Dominion formation. Communications filled with alarms and frantic voices as captains struggled to restore order. Admiral Thrax stood from his seat, disbelief overtaking his expression. He declared that no ship could possess such strength, yet the evidence burned across his screens. The Titan continued its assault. Missile bays opened and waves of warheads streamed outward with precise guidance. They bypassed countermeasures and struck accurately. Destroyers collapsed under the impacts. Carriers split apart. Battleships that had endured for centuries were reduced to debris within seconds. The Titan's weapons did not show fury. They operated with cold finality. On the human bridge, there was no celebration. The crew remained focused and disciplined, carrying out their tasks without visible emotion. Their restraint deepened the fear gripping their enemy. Inside the Dominion flagship, chaos intensified. Reports confirmed that half the fleet had already been destroyed. Thrax felt his pulse race as the reality of the situation became undeniable. He had dismissed humanity as weak and unprepared. Now he understood that Earth had been building its strength in silence. A new report interrupted his thoughts. The Titan hangar bays were opening. On the display, massive doors along the warship's hull parted. From within emerged squadrons of sleek strike craft. They accelerated with startling speed, far beyond anything the Dravari had previously encountered. These were not the slow fighters Earth had once deployed. These craft were designed for pursuit and precision. They penetrated Dominion lines, weaving between larger ships and targeting vulnerable points. Their weapons cut through armor with calculated accuracy, destroying vessels many times their size. Alien captains attempted to counter them, but the human craft moved too quickly to track effectively. The once confident Dominion fleet was being dismantled piece by piece. On the Titan, Ellis directed operations without raising his voice. He ordered continued pressure and instructed his forces not to chase retreating ships, but to make the enemy witness the consequences. The intention was clear. Humanity was not merely defending itself, it was demonstrating power. Across the battlefield, alien crews spoke in hushed tones. The name of Earth, once dismissed, now carried fear. The Titan was no myth. It was present and unstoppable. Thrax gripped the railing before him as pride battled with the truth before his eyes. The Dominion was losing, and defeat here would echo across the galaxy. The Titan strike craft regrouped and resumed coordinated attacks, while the warship's main batteries began charging again. Energy gathered steadily for another discharge. Thrax muttered in disbelief, questioning what Earth had created and what it had become. The answer was evident in the Titan's actions. Humanity had chosen its moment carefully, and when it acted decisively. The battlefield transformed into a graveyard. Dominion vessels drifted in flames, shattered and lifeless. What had begun as a confident offensive against a single ship had turned into disaster. Admiral Thrax stood rigid, his hands trembling against the command chair. He had led victories across countless systems and witnessed empires fall, but now he confronted defeat. Officers reported that Squadrons 6 and 9 had been destroyed, that battleships were unable to maintain position, and that the Titan was charging another volley. Thrax's eyes burned with anger as he ordered his fleet to hold the line and refuse to bow to humans. His declaration lacked conviction. On the Titan, Ellis observed without emotion. Reports confirmed no human losses. Dominion formations were collapsing. The strike craft continued their relentless operations. Ellis asked for the status of the main weapon. Capacitors were fully charged. The cannon was ready. He instructed the crew to prepare to fire. Deep within the Titan, energy accumulated. The main cannon represented technology unknown to the wider galaxy. Power increased gradually until light spread across the ship's surface. A concentrated beam formed at the prow, growing brighter with each second. The Dominion fleet reacted with visible fear. Crews who had never known hesitation now felt dread. A captain urgently urged retreat over the communications channel. Thrax silenced him and insisted they fight to the end, though his gaze remained fixed on the forming weapon. The Titan fired. The beam crossed space in an instant, extending for Killam before striking the Dominion flagship positioned beside Thrax's own vessel. The targeted ship disappeared completely. It was not damaged or broken. It ceased to exist. The flagship carrying 3,000 warriors vanished in a single flash. Silence overtook Dominion communications. If one shot could remove a capital ship so easily, survival seemed impossible. On the Titan, Ellis maintained composure and prepared for the next volley. Sweat traced down Thrax's scaled neck as pride clashed with reality. An officer quietly observed that humanity was not simply defeating them, but sending a message for the galaxy to witness. Signals of the battle were already spreading to nearby systems. Other species were watching Dominion ships fall, and the Titan's power reshaped the conflict. Earth had risen, Thrax's thoughts raced. Retreat would damage the Dominion's reputation. Continuing the fight would mean destruction. He ordered remaining ships to concentrate on the strike craft and attempt to overwhelm them with numbers. Dominion vessels regrouped and surged forward, attacking desperately. For a brief moment, human squadrons adjusted formation and pulled back, giving the appearance of opportunity. Hope flickered among alien crews. Then the Titan advanced. Its engines ignited with controlled force as the massive hull moved forward for the first time. Defensive turrets activated along its sides, unleashing coordinated fire. Hundreds of Dominion ships were destroyed within seconds, their attacks neutralized before reaching the human fighters. The Titan pressed onward without hesitation, carving a direct path toward Thrax's command ship. Reports confirmed that it was approaching. Thrax ordered his crew to stand firm and refused to flee, though uncertainty spread among his officers. Some vessels began withdrawing independently. The Dominion line fractured. On the Titan, Ellis issued a final instruction. he ordered a transmission to the Dominion fleet. When asked what message to send, he replied that it was only the beginning. The statement traveled across open channels. Every alien crew heard it, and remaining resolve weakened. The Dominion had misjudged humanity. Earth was no longer merely defending itself. It was declaring war, and the balance of power had shifted. The battle neared its end, though the Titan had fired only a limited number of times. Where Dominion fire once filled the void, only scattered wreckage remained. The fleet that had mocked Earth was reduced to fragments drifting through space. Admiral Thrax slumped in his chair, disbelief overwhelming him. He whispered questions about how this outcome was possible, insisting humans had once been insignificant. No officer responded. They watched as the Titan drew closer. The warship had chosen its course, and that course led directly toward them. Thrax felt the weight of fear settle upon him. He had commanded thousands of engagements and caused billions of deaths, yet now a single human vessel made him feel hunted. On the Titan, Commander Ellis stood straight, studying the remaining Dominion flagship ahead. He ordered the main cannon locked onto their command ship. The crew complied immediately. Across the Titan's hull, energy conduits brightened as power rose once more at the prow of the vessel. The prow of the Titan glowed with blinding white light as the main cannon gathered energy equal to a small sun. The human crew showed no excitement and no arrogance. They prepared with steady focus, treating the coming destruction as a responsibility rather than a victory. Inside the Dominion flagship, alarms sounded and officers shouted in alarm. They warned Admiral Thrax that the Titan was targeting their vessel and urged immediate retreat. Thrax struck the console with his claw and refused to run, declaring that they were the Dominion and would not flee. Yet even as he spoke, ships throughout his remaining fleet were already turning away, captains abandoning the fight in fear. Pride no longer guided them. Survival did. The Titan fired. The beam crossed space instantly and tore through the flagship without resistance. Metal ruptured, fire swept through the decks, and the bridge was consumed in overwhelming light. Thrax stood one final time, anger and despair on his face, before the blast erased him along with his ship. When the beam faded, nothing remained of the Dominion command vessel but drifting dust. Silence settled across the battlefield. The few surviving alien ships powered down their weapons, their communications filled with shaken voices. None attempted to approach the Titan. None dared challenge it again. The massive warship moved slowly forward, its shadow covering the debris as a final warning. Commander Ellis issued one last order to open all channels. A young officer confirmed readiness. Ellis spoke in a calm and steady voice intended for every listener across the stars. He announced that the battle was over and instructed them to return to their leaders and report what they had witnessed. He told them to make it clear that Earth was no longer prey and that humanity had risen, and that this encounter was only the beginning. The transmission traveled rapidly across systems and colonies throughout the galaxy. Along with the message came images of the Titan, the black warship that had overshadowed a fleet and reduced it to ruin. Survivors fled in every direction. Some carried fear back to the Dominion. Others brought the news to neutral territories. Long before the wreckage cooled, the account of the battle had already reached distant regions of space. The Titan class was no longer dismissed as rumor. It was an established reality. In gathering places, soldiers spoke of it in hushed tones. In council chambers, leaders demanded explanations for how Earth had constructed such a vessel. In fortified strongholds, powerful rulers felt unease for the first time. Across the galaxy, a single realization spread. The humans are not weak. On Earth, there were no celebrations and no public displays of triumph. The victory remained quiet, just as the Titan itself had once remained hidden. The human navy understood that the galaxy was watching and that restraint carried its own strength. On the bridge of the Titan, Commander Ellis stood before the main display as his officers continued their duties in silence. He sensed their thoughts. They had witnessed humanity step forward as a major power. Ellis allowed himself a single reflection, not of pride or excitement, but of certainty. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. As the Titan turned away from the battlefield, leaving behind the shattered remains of Dominion pride, a new understanding settled across the stars. Humanity had once been mocked and underestimated, but now the shadow of Earth inspired fear. The Titan maintained its course for several minutes after clearing the battlefield, its engines steady and controlled as debris drifted in its wake. No pursuit followed. No hidden counterattack emerged from the darkness. The Dominion force that had arrived in confidence no longer existed as an organized threat. On the bridge, Commander Ellis studied the tactical display while reports continued to flow in from long-range sensors. Scattered Dominion ships were retreating in different directions, broadcasting emergency signals and fragmented distress calls. None attempted to regroup. None attempted revenge. They were running. Ellis finally gave the order to stand down from combat alert, weapon systems powered to ready status rather than active engagement. Strike craft were recalled in disciplined waves, each squadron reporting successful return and minimal resource expenditure. Damage control teams confirmed once again that the Titan had sustained no structural compromise. The ship had performed exactly as designed. Across human-controlled space, encrypted channels lit up with confirmations that Allied listening posts had recorded the entire encounter. The footage was already being secured, analyzed, and prepared for controlled release. Earth would decide carefully what the galaxy would see and what it would only hear about through rumor. Ellis turned toward his communications officer. Begin Phase 2 transmission protocol. The officer acknowledged and initiated targeted signals directed not at the Dominion, but at major political centers across known space. The message was simple and carried no threats. Earth sought stability. Earth sought respect. Any future aggression would be met with decisive response. No boastful tone accompanied the words. The meaning was clear without embellishment. Far from the battlefield, within the fractured remnants of Dominion territory, emergency councils assembled in haste. Senior commanders who had not joined the assault now watched confirmed footage of their flagship erased in a single blast. Shock gave way to anger and then to fear. Reports confirmed the loss of Admiral Thrax, along with a substantial portion of the forward fleet. Dominion strategists had never considered the possibility of such overwhelming disparity. Their long-standing assumption of superiority had been broken in a single engagement. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others argued that further confrontation without understanding the Titan would lead to total collapse. For the first time in generations, Dominion leadership faced internal division born not from ambition, but from uncertainty. On Earth, high-level officials convened in secure chambers beneath the surface of the planet. Representatives from military command, scientific divisions, and global leadership listened to Ellis deliver his report in precise detail. He did not exaggerate the outcome nor minimize the scale of destruction. He explained the Titan's performance metrics, energy consumption levels, and the psychological effect observed in enemy formations. Analysts confirmed that Dominion retreat patterns indicated widespread fear rather than tactical repositioning. Earth's leaders absorbed the information in silence. One elder statesman finally spoke. The galaxy now knows we are capable. The question is whether they believe we are willing. Ellis answered calmly. They will test that question in time. We must be prepared for both diplomacy and war. Within days, the first official responses from neutral powers began to arrive. Some sent formal inquiries seeking clarification of Earth's intentions. Others offered cautious congratulations disguised as expressions of concern. Trade alliances that had once treated Earth as a minor participant now requested urgent discussions. Smaller species previously under Dominion pressure quietly transmitted gratitude for what they described as a shift in balance. None openly pledged allegiance. None openly challenged Earth either. The Titan remained deployed at the edge of former Dominion advanced space, a silent reminder that humanity was not retreating back into obscurity. Maintenance crews rotated through system checks, while scientific officers gathered combat data for further refinement. Engineers reviewed shield harmonics and weapon discharge efficiency. The encounter had proven the design, but refinement would continue. Ellis understood that the Titan could not be a singular symbol without support. Production facilities hidden across human territory accelerated long-term plans that had once moved cautiously. Resource allocations shifted. Shipyards expanded. Humanity would not rely on a single vessel forever. In Dominion space, public knowledge of the defeat spread despite attempts to contain it. Families of lost warriors demanded answers. Military academies revised their curriculum overnight. Recruitment efforts slowed as confidence faltered. Some border commanders quietly withdrew patrols from contested regions, unwilling to risk confrontation with a power now proven capable of annihilation. Dominion propaganda units attempted to frame the event as an unfortunate tactical miscalculation, yet leaked recordings of the Titan's beam contradicted every attempt at reassurance. Fear, once projected outward, had turned inward. Weeks later, a Dominion diplomatic envoy arrived under neutral escort at a remote human outpost. The request for parley had been transmitted through multiple intermediaries, cautious and measured. Ellis did not attend personally, but he monitored the exchange from orbit. The Dominion representative acknowledged the loss of their fleet without admitting fault. He proposed a ceasefire along previously disputed boundaries and requested a mutual agreement of non-aggression. The human delegation listened without visible reaction. They responded that Earth had never sought expansion into Dominion core territory but would not tolerate further incursions. The envoy departed with a preliminary framework for formal negotiations. Across the galaxy, observers noted the shift. The Dominion, once dominant and unyielding, was negotiating. The Titan continued its patrol while additional human fleets quietly mobilized behind it. These fleets were smaller, more conventional, but modern and disciplined. They were no longer the outdated formations that had once barely survived Dominion assault. Training programs intensified. Recruitment increased steadily as citizens who had witnessed the transmission felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yet public celebrations remained absent. Government broadcasts emphasized vigilance and responsibility rather than triumph. Ellis spent long hours reviewing strategic forecasts. Intelligence divisions warned that other major powers were accelerating their own weapons research. Some feared humanity's rise, others sought alliance. The balance that had held for decades was shifting rapidly. He understood that fear alone could not secure lasting stability. Respect required measured conduct. He ordered humanitarian aid dispatched to border systems damaged during prior Dominion campaigns, including worlds not aligned with Earth. The gesture was intentional. Power would be paired with restraint. In private moments, Ellis reflected on the cost of what might come next. The Titan had changed perception, but it had also ended any illusion of anonymity. Humanity was now visible. That visibility would attract scrutiny, challenge, and opportunity. Months passed. Negotiations with the Dominion formalized into a treaty that recognized mutual sovereignty and established monitored demilitarized zones. The agreement did not create friendship, but it prevented immediate escalation. Dominion fleets withdrew deeper into their territory, focusing on internal stabilization. Intelligence confirmed that their shipyards were rebuilding, though cautiously. Earth continued expansion of defensive infrastructure. Additional Titan-class frameworks began construction under extreme secrecy, though none would be publicly acknowledged. The galaxy adjusted to the new reality. Trade routes shifted. Political alliances recalibrated. Smaller powers reconsidered old loyalties. The phrase that had spread after the battle remained in circulation, not shouted but repeated in quiet conversations. The humans are not weak. On the bridge of the Titan, as it prepared for rotation back toward Earth for scheduled overhaul, Ellis stood before the stars once more. Reports indicated relative calm across the sectors once threatened by Dominion advance. He allowed himself a brief moment of stillness. The first step had been taken. The future would demand many more. He turned to his crew and issued final directives for return trajectory. Engines adjusted smoothly. The massive warship altered course, not in retreat, but in preparation for what lay ahead. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage with unmistakable force. Whether that force would secure lasting peace or ignite wider conflict remained uncertain. What was certain was this: no empire would ever again dismiss Earth as insignificant. The shadow cast by the Titan had reshaped the stars, and from that shadow, a new era had begun.